Hey everyone, it's time for Good Week Israel. Well, we'll give you ILTV's latest positive highlights. So get ready to smile because coming up, we're exploring the Armenian Quarter in the Old City of Jerusalem. Stay tuned to hear all about the ancient discovery revealed in the City of David. And you're going to want to book a room in this desert hotel a few months in advance. So yalla, let's start. I've been exploring the four quarters of the Old City, and it's finally time to show you the Armenian Quarter. The Old City of Jerusalem is divided into four quarters, and the smallest quarter is the Armenian one. This area is home to an ancient community of thousands of Armenians who have resided here for over 2,000 years. So we're heading now to the Armenian Quarter, which you said that there's not too much for us that we're allowed to see, right?
Yes, it's a very small, the smallest quarter in Jerusalem. Armenians are kind of a different branch in Christianity. In the year 301, their king decided to force all his citizens to become Christian. It was the first country ever in the world that became Christian.
Located in the southern western corner of the Old City, the Armenian Quarter occupies about 14% of the Old City and is considered to be the oldest living diaspora community outside of the Armenian homeland.
This is the heart and the most important church that we have over here. A church that is dedicated to St. James. Over here, his head is buried inside. His body is buried in Spain.
The Armenians consider their quarter to actually be part of the Christian one. However, the main reasoning behind the separation of the two is distinct differences in language, culture, and practicing of religion. In the mid-20th century, Armenians began emigrating from the Old City of Jerusalem. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War and the lack of long-standing political solutions have both been cited as the main causes of the decrease in the number of Armenians. Make sure you incorporate the four quarters of Jerusalem on your next visit to Israel. Speaking of Jerusalem, a rare and ancient discovery has now been revealed in the City of David, and it offers an extraordinary look into our ancestors' way of life. ILTV's Nittany Manson has the scoop.
It's a very rare discovery, and only two others like it have been unearthed in the area before, once in excavations in the Jewish quarter in Jerusalem, and once to the north of the city in Shuafat. So what is it? Because to the average Joe like me and you, it doesn't look like much. Well, it's an incredible device that served as the heart of trade at the end of the Second Temple period in Jerusalem. This is a measurement table, most likely used by the marketplace agronomist, and here's how it works. Archaeologist Olli Geller explains that the tool has a cavity in the top where one would pour liquids like oil and wine and measure for exact volumes. Then on the bottom there's a hole which would be plugged during measurements but open to flow into other measured containers which every trader in the market had. This means that all traders at the time could be doing their business using uniform and standardized measurements. But that's not all. In addition to the top of the stone measurement table, the IAA discovery also includes dozens of stone measurement weights and other parts of what appear to be a major town square along the pilgrimage road. Levy again describes how the plaza was uncovered during this excavation and likely served as the main market plaza during the Second Temple period, very similar in fact to the Machane Yehuda market of today, and all pilgrims, traders, or visitors would have made their way through this area.
One Israeli hotel has just received a major badge of honor, but get this, it hasn't even opened yet.
This is where the sunset melds into the orange dunes, where the night sky is scattered with stardust, and where one of the top 20 hotels in the world is located according to CNN. It's called the Six Senses Shaharut, a stunning hotel and spa nestled into a dramatic cliff in Israel's famous Negev desert. And while the surroundings are serene and relaxing, the hotel offers a menu of desert-centric diversions, including camel safaris and rappelling into Israel's Machtesh Ramon, which is the largest wind erosion crater in the world. Here's the only catch. The hotel isn't open yet. Six Senses Shaarut will be opening its doors in the spring, offering 65 rooms to the public. Still, though, the hotel is already being listed as one of the 20 best new hotels to visit in 2020 by CNN and the UK Times newspaper. Just keep in mind, it costs about $1,000 a night at this southern Israeli gem. Luckily, breakfast is included.
Everyone has a crazy story to tell from one of their vacations, but one American tourist in Israel may take the cake.
I just called the police. My heart's racing, but I'm okay. And this is crazy.
This is the panicked social media post of an American tourist trapped in the luggage hold of an Israeli bus.
I'm still in the undercarriage with all the suitcases, and this is really freaky.
He was riding a bus from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem when it happened.
Guys, literally only in Israel, I went to get my suitcase from under the bus, and the guy closed the door on me. He has no idea I'm in here. He's driving away.
The 19-year-old from New Jersey says when he was climbing into the space under the bus to remove his suitcase, the door closed from behind him and trapped him inside. But luckily, the youngster had signal from underneath the bus and managed to call the police, who were able to track the bus using GPS and stop it just 20 minutes after the teen got stuck.
I'm not hurt. I love you.
Medical cannabis has truly been able to change so many people's lives for the better. I got the chance to meet two people who are constantly advocating for change in the industry. Take a look.
My name is Dana Baron. I have a neuromuscular disease called CMT. It's a genetic disease, and cannabis is the reason I can walk on my feet. About 12 years ago, the disease has started to take really fast turning points, and my body started going crazy. I had every muscle in my body either too tight or too slow, weak, unable to move. I had pains all over, neurological pain, muscular pain. I was very, very, very weak and couldn't function.
For years, Donna tried all different kinds of medications to treat her shaking and pain, but most of them did irreparable damage to her body. And then, about 10 years ago, she decided to take a new approach to fighting her disease.
I was the first for my disease in Israel to receive that medical cannabis treatment. And it's the sole medication I take for my disease. I take no other medication for no symptom. Not for eating, not for sleeping, not for shaking, not for pain, nothing. I'm walking. That's something that nobody had expected back then. Back then I was given about 5 years until I'd be completely atrophied. I was supposed to be in a wheelchair.
Donna is just one of about 30,000 people who are using cannabis to treat various medical conditions here in Israel. The Jewish state is known as a worldwide leader in the medical cannabis industry.
We're incredibly good at high tech and ag tech, growing things, water technologies, pharmaceutical development, biotech, and that's cannabis. Yes, it's a plant on one hand, but on the other hand, we take the agricultural material and we create medicine from it.
Saul Kay is a pharmacist as well as the founder and CEO of Israel Cannabis, or ICANN, and has been working in the cannabis industry for over 3 years.
My partner in the cannabis industry has chronic fatigue. My mother has Crohn's and my son has epilepsy. And none of the medications that were available in the common market were helping. And we found cannabis 3 years ago and everything changed, everything. Yeah. Medical cannabis, proven to be an incredibly safe medication, safer than tobacco, safer than caffeine, safer than alcohol, and yet stigmatized that to a point where you cannot get it.
Well, that's all beginning to change because of Israel's leading clinical research on medical marijuana. Unlike in other countries, lax government regulations make Israel the perfect ground for research, and people want more information.
Mothers have been an incredible driver, the ones that are pushing to get access for their children who are often really, really sick. So it's really hard from a regulator point of view to say no to sick children. So that broadens the awareness and people start to become a little more accepting of cannabis as a medicine.
Even Israel's Hadassah hospital in Jerusalem has taken things to the next step by starting a study for children with autism based around the proven benefits of medical cannabis.
That's a huge mind shift to saying this was illegal, contraband, no medical benefit, to saying we're actually going to give it to kids because it's working better than anything else out there is phenomenal.
Now, people around the world are turning to Israel for its quickly developing medical cannabis industry.
We've got this Yiddish cop that everyone here wants to be an innovator, an entrepreneur, so we're now excited by this economy that's blowing up in America to $20 billion in 2 years' time.
But just because there's a lot of leading research in Israel, it doesn't mean patients don't have problems getting a license for it. Saul points out that the main goal is to get more patient access and less bureaucratic interference.
We go to a doctor, he writes a prescription, we go to the pharmacy, we pick it up. And then there's follow-on care. That doesn't really happen in cannabis. So we're in this vacuum of patients knowing more than doctors, doctors being very hesitant because there is no scientific evidence, because for 50 years we've not been able to do the clinical research that is required for medical cannabis.
There are now reports stating that Israel will start exporting medical cannabis. And while the money is promising, the main goal ultimately is to help spread the treatment worldwide.
In my opinion, the right conversation is not legalization, but medicalization. Get it into patients. Whatever happens on recreational will happen. It's going to take more time. It takes a generation to lose some of these things that we hold on to tight. Look at the civil rights movement. It took 2 generations and we still have racism around. So there's going to be a lot of stigma around in 20, 30, 40 years. But right now we have an opportunity to help patients and no one argues.
The future of modern warfare is here, and thanks to Israeli technology, it includes just as many lasers as you were hoping for.
Speak softly, but carry a big stick. These are the words of President Roosevelt that have guided many world nations' diplomacy. But with Hezbollah to the north and Hamas to the south, Israel is swapping out the stick for something a little bit more high-tech, and it'll completely change the face of war as we know it. Now, lasers have long since captivated the imagination of futurists and sci-fi writers worldwide. But thanks to new Israeli technology 10 years in the making, high-energy laser beams capable of intercepting rockets and missiles are now making their debut in the field. And Defense Minister Naftali Bennett says that the laser sword makes Israel's security apparatus more lethal, more powerful, and more advanced than ever before. Previous attempts to create such lasers have all apparently failed to produce good results, but this breakthrough defense combines multiple long-range lasers into one strong beam, and it can be focused on long-range targets while overcoming clouds, dust storms, and other disturbances. Finally, best of all, officials explained that while missile interceptors, like even the Iron Dome, can run out, this system is never ending as long as you have electricity.
The Chinese social media app TikTok has become a major hit worldwide. But not everyone will have a chance to enjoy it. Israel's border police has banned their officers from using the video sharing platform out of security concerns.
This is TikTok, an app that's especially popular among Israeli teens who use it to film themselves in short videos dancing, lip-syncing, or doing who knows what. But Israeli border police say uploading videos to the app from police installations or operations could compromise Israel's security. They say that the footage itself could also damage the reputation of the organization by showing officers behaving inappropriately and hurting their privacy. Now, there's always been a ban on uploading multimedia about bases and operations to social media, but apparently some recent videos on TikTok have caused the agency to single out the app. Well, the U.S. Army has already banned the Chinese app itself, saying the company behind the app could be compelled to support and cooperate with intelligence work controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Last year, the United States ordered soldiers to stop broadcasting their location data from their smartphones after it was revealed that the Strava running app had released the positions of soldiers in Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is looking for some new employees, and now the world-famous Israeli mentalist Olli Geller says he's the man for the job. Nittany Manson has the story.
Spoon bending, mind reading, telekinesis. These are just some of the paranormal powers that Israeli mentalist Olli Geller claims he has. He says his mind has the ability to do things that are unheard of, like making coins fold.
Look, it continues bending for about 30 seconds.
Now, Olli Geller says he wants to use his skills to work for none other than British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. One of the UK's leader senior advisors, Don Cummings, recently took to the internet in search of, quote, assorted weirdos to come and work in their government, saying the civil service doesn't have enough cognitive diversity.
When I heard that Don was looking for extraordinary people with amazing talents, visionaries and weirdos, I said, well, maybe I'm a bit of a weirdo, I will apply.
Geller is convinced that he's the right man for the job. After all, he has a lot of experience.
I made the Russians sign the nuclear arms reduction treaty. The Americans asked me. The CIA verified and validated my powers. I know I can be great help to 10 Downing Street. There is no doubt in my mind that I might very possibly get a positive response.
The 73-year-old illusionist gained notoriety back in the 1970s for demonstrating his so-called powers on international television, from describing hidden drawings, making watches stop or run faster, and allegedly communicating with super intelligent computers from outer space. His psychic abilities have been questioned by critics, but Geller maintains that he is the real deal. The mentalist is also a British citizen, and back in 2017, he even tried to use his powers to stop then-leader Theresa May from following through with Brexit.
Look into my eyes, everybody, and look deeply into my eyes. Do what the nation wants. Do this very powerful step. Bring the second referendum. I'm sending you this power, the energy. I hope you're receiving it.
Australia is still ablaze as bushfires continue to rage across the country, and some Israeli organizations are now attempting to lend a helping hand.
Devastation and death. Those are the words being used to describe the scene in Australia. Over 22.5 million acres of land have been destroyed by wild bushfires. That's about the size of South Korea or Portugal. And about 1/3 of Kangaroo Island in southern Australia has been destroyed. The flames continue to grow and are blowing smoke so far it can be seen from outer space. At least 24 people have been killed, and an estimated 500 million animals are dead. In fact, some species may be going extinct as a result of the blazes.
I'm guessing well over 50% of our koala population's gone.
And this is just heartbreaking to come along here, and the fence line's just littered with animals that have tried to get out, and they've broken through the fence here trying to get through. And look at this, it's disturbing. It is really, really disturbing. That is just such a waste.
Pretty horrifying. I've lived here since I was 4 years old, and I've never seen anything like this before.
While the Jerusalem Biblical Zoo is now collecting donations to help the Animal Rescue Collective in Australia. In an announcement earlier this week, the Zoological Park is urging the public to help purchase veterinary supplies that can be sent to Victoria, Australia, including burn creams, milk alternatives, wound sprays, disinfectants, and more. But sadly, the supplies aren't enough. Peter Davis is a beehive owner on Kangaroo Island, and he says his bees need nature to be replenished.
If we can't get them onto a resource where there's flowers, where there's nectar and pollen for them, the queens will stop breeding and they will just decline in numbers. We have a community spirit here on Kangaroo Island that is not burnable. It hurts. It hurts to see this, and I don't want anyone to go through this again.
And now for the Torah portion with Sandra Oster-Barris, Director of the Christian Friends of Israeli Communities in Heartland.
This week's Torah portion is Vayechi. And here we have the sum up of the book of Genesis and the end of Jacob's life. I'd like to focus on one of the blessings that Jacob gives to his sons, the blessing to Judah. One of the things that's really nice, actually, in the blessing, he talks about how much wine and milk, or more talking about wine than milk, that will be in, Judah's inheritance. And it's interesting because today in Judea, we have some of the most wonderful dairy farms producing more liters of milk a day than you'll find anywhere else in the world. But anyway, let's go back to this blessing itself. Here, Jacob says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his feet, until he comes to Shiloh and receives the homage of his people." Now, we know, of course, that it is David from the tribe of Judah who becomes the ultimate king of Israel. And God promises David that it is only his descendants that will be king. Solomon, and then on through the ages. And in fact, today, we as Jews are waiting in great anticipation for Messiah to come, Messiah who will also be a descendant of David. But what does this mean? Until he comes to Shiloh, okay? Now, Shiloh, we know Shiloh is a place in Israel, and it is where the tabernacle stood for 369 years. What happened there? Now, there's many interpretations, but one that I particularly like is as follows, that this refers to the prophet Achiah Hashiloni, Achiah from Shiloh. And he's the one who actually prophesies to Jeroboam that after Solomon's death, the kingdom will split. And Rehoboam, who is Solomon's son, will only inherit a very small part of the kingdom, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. All the rest will follow Jeroboam. This, of course, is a tremendous rift and a tremendous breach of this idea that the kingdom will always be in the hands of David. The nation of Israel splits. This, of course, is a split between Judah and Ephraim, the son of Joseph, because Jeroboam is the son of Joseph. And indeed, what we see here in the split is going back to the original rift between the brothers led by Judah and Joseph. That rift was never really healed, and it will come back to haunt us for a very long time. Just a few minutes of the Torah portion from the heart of biblical Israel.
That's all for today's Good Week Israel. Hope we've helped you start your week off with a smile. I'm Emmanuel Kadosh, and see you next week.